A decision was made during a contract negotiation in 21, around March of 21. I knew that I just recently turned 60. I needed some time back. I had young children, and the hamster wheel, that's what you would call it, needed disrespectfully, but it was golden hamster wheel at that. The NFL, the PGA Tour, and basketball was amounting in some years to almost 48, some years even 50 weeks a year on the road. So you're going to be home for 3 or 4 days and it's packed and back out on the road again. And I had done it for so many years. I needed to find something back. You're not giving up the NFL. The NFL is key. And of course, the golf is a part of mine. I need golf like I need oxygen. It's a part of my being, so I was not going to step away from that. So basketball, I dearly loved it. You know, when I got the job to take over for Brent Musburger in 1991, again, I had hosted it for 5 years. They held a press conference in New York in a room like this, and I'm sitting at a table, and a writer from one of the New York papers says, "What do you think about maybe one day being able to say you did as many Final Fours as Brent Musburger and Dick Enberg? You know, they have a record for the most championship calls." And I said, "That would be a dream." And I knew the answer, but I was trying to engage. And I said, "How many years did they do it?" And he said, "They did 6 each. You think you can get there?" I said,
How'd he do?
All of it with total gratitude in my heart. That never leaves me. All of this, I can't believe I've had a chance to do these events. So it was a glorious time. I worked most of those years with Billy Packer, who was a great character. We did all 18 championships, Final Fours together. I was thinking this morning, for some reason, dates, you were talking about my memory, which has served me well. I wake up sometimes and I think, what happened on this date? And you know what came to mind today, December 14th? It was on this day in 1991. I was here in Michigan with Billy, and we called the first national game of the Fab Five against Duke.
Really?
In Chrysler Arena.
Wow.
It was 33 years ago today. Oh my gosh, more than a half a lifetime ago. I was over in Ann Arbor, and it was Christian Laettner and that crew, Bobby Burley, and Grant Hill against the Fab Five. They had played 5 games at that point, talking about Michigan, and they were beating up on some lower quality opponents. But the word had been out. There's a lot of buzz nationally about these 5, and they debuted on this day on CBS 33 years ago.
Wow.
And the game went to overtime.
Wow. Wow.
And I got to call many of those games in that run with Michigan, including, of course, they made it to the Final Four for what turned out to be a rematch performance against Duke up in Minneapolis. Duke came off the floor in that game, beat them by 20. And then the next year, of course, they went to New Orleans. And it was the famous timeout game. One of the saddest endings I've ever had, because you never feel good about someone having to live with that the rest of their lives, nor the fact that's the way you win. But at that one, I remember feeling really torn just about how the season ended and how a young man's going to have to live with that. But I love my basketball life. So it's March of 21. CBS still broadcasts the tournament with Turner now. So we alternate years of the last weekend where Turner has a 1 year, CBS has a 1 year. And I knew that when I was going to give it up, I wanted to be on a CBS year, just all things being equal. And then out there, looming, was Houston, was the site in 23. So we put this contract together, and I said, let's include in it that I'm not going to do basketball after 23. I'll have a farewell there. And I did. And before we came on the air, they ran a piece, and I didn't know they were going to do it. I was sitting on the desk, the reading desk, with Bernie Johnson, Clark Kellogg, and Charles James Smith. And they led to a piece in my career, narrated by Ron Howard. Happy Day, Richie Cunningham. A few years ago, of course, there was a play-by-play in the NFL hosted the NFL player radio show. And I did the show with Chip. And we go to there Friday, Saturday night, tell stories. He's such a character. He's not great at all now. But at the time, he said, if you could go to dinner with any one person, it can't be a family member, it has to be someone who's alive. You've never met before. Who would it be? Pondered over that one for a while. And I came up with Ron Howard. I said, how in the heck did you know Ron Howard? I said, you know, I always admired how he was a child star. And I love the Andy Griffith Show. I'm from North Carolina originally, so I'm related to it. And now, he reinvents himself as Richie Cunningham, long time #1 show. And then he says, I am done with being in front of the camera, I'm going behind again. Can you imagine how many egos in Hollywood could ever make that move? One, Ron Howard, be able to go behind it and now direct some really great films through the years. Beautiful Mind, on and on and on. And I just always admired it. Remember that? I happened to share that story a few months later with a couple up in Connecticut. They didn't seem to react too strongly on it. But they did invite me to their house for dinner about 3 weeks later. And I walk into the front door, and there's Ron Howard. Like, what is going on here? And Rick says, you said you always wanted to have dinner. Ron Howard. Here he is. So I got to meet him, got to become friends with Ron. You know, it's a sweet story. I got to tell you, Tony, at the table. And I said, how did you guys settle on Greenwich, Connecticut? And she said, we didn't want to raise our children in Hollywood. So we really was down to two places. This is how low ego they both are. It was either going to be Greenwich or a small town somewhere outside of Raleigh in North Carolina. And I said, wow. She goes, yeah, it was a tough decision. She says, Ronnie, when he was a young boy, played a character that lived in a little town in North Carolina. Cheryl. I know about OBJ. No, we all know about this. But I thought that the fact she was going to walk me through that without any assumptions said it all about this. So anyway, Ron Howard does the piece. I go broadcast another UConn championship, and I stood on the floor after the game with my oldest daughter, Caroline. It was a ritual for us watching one shining moment. And I walked out of the building knowing I would never call another basketball game. I did 354 NCAA tournament games, just tournament games. Win, advance, lose, you're done. Signing off, Raftery and Grant say something to me on the air, and I got choked up. I had asked them not to make any fuss about it during the broadcast, but they did. And the last thing I could get out was, I just want to say to all the people I interfaced with over these last 4 decades, thank you for being my friend. And anyway, we get in the car. It's exotic the way we leave these movies. I'm not going to kid you. It's not reserved for me. It comes with the territory. Police escorts. You feel like a rock star. We're not. The game ends. You get whisked through the stadium. You jump into a car. Next thing you know, you're off to an airport, flying out. Minutes later. But that happens every time you do a game. And in this case, we're pulling away from the stadium in Houston, and my daughter says, Caroline says, Dad, you're trending #1 in the world right now on Twitter. Which, it happens. It happens. Doing games with Romo, he's often like #1 in the world. I'm riding on his coattails at #3 or 4. From what I hear, I'm not a Twitter guy. But I'm, usually that means you've done something really egregious. The words have come out upside down, or your fly was open during it. So I said, oh Lord, what is this about? She says, no, Dad, it's all good. People are really reacting to how you said goodbye, your goodbye friends. So I was relieved. There was a party back at the hotel afterwards that went on to like 1 or 2 in the morning. Next morning, I'm on my way to Augusta. She's riding out with me at the airport, and she says, Dad, we just had a magical last weekend. She said, I just want you to know you're still #1. I said, oh, honey, That's so sweet of you to say. She goes, no, I'm talking about Twitter. Had legs for a while, and I said goodbye, and sure, I miss it. What I gotta say, I love being with my kids more than I love calling my phone.